Hello, welcome. Whoever you are, welcome. I'm just eating some cabbage right now. It's kind of a weird time. I wonder if anyone's going to make the stream. Hello, Chris. Everything's going well. How about you? Hello, Corey. Yeah, I figure I can stream at like 4:30, and that'll give people in different time zones a chance to see some of the streams. But it's good to know. Glad you're doing well. I am sitting in the corner of my living room, live streaming, eating some cabbage. Nice. Yeah, that's always a really nice thing to be able to do, Corey. Like making your own hours, because like you can still get work done. It's just you can fit it to your lifestyle, because everyone has like a different lifestyle and rhythm, I feel like. Like this is actually the first meal of my day, and I've talked with other people about like how they have eating habits, and they have to like eat regularly throughout the day. But it's sort of half and half. Some of us are still working. Some of us are doing Adventure Archives full time. Yeah, and actually, I was just talking with Thomas about some Adventure Archive stuff and talking about potential other merchandise that we could release, and starting up the Campfire Chronicles podcast again, which we meant to do this Saturday, but he ended up not being able to, I think. But yeah, out of curiosity, what do you do, Corey, if you don't mind me asking? I mean, you don't have to say, but I'm always curious about that sort of thing. So I will be right back. I'm going to grab some water. Chris, not a whole lot of info yet. We were looking at a certain trail in Hawaii, but we might change it around because it might be a little dangerous potentially. Well, we're at least going to change our plans around as far as that trip is concerned. Although, yeah, I guess I didn't even necessarily announce that yet, but we are thinking of doing a trip in Hawaii this coming month. Not in November, but December. Obviously, that's one of our bigger trips, but we have some money in the account that we can use. And it's always good to go to a big location here and there, just because, one, it's exciting for viewers to watch, but two, also, bigger trips tend to draw in more viewers, or at least newer viewers. So it's kind of like a bigger investment, but it can also bring new people to the channel. A men's grooming supply business. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, okay. I was going to say, now that you mentioned that, it did sound really familiar. Beard care items, beard oils, balms, solid cologne. Yeah, I was going to say the beard items, unless they can make me grow a beard, are not going to be too much use to me, but cologne would be interesting. I've actually never worn like any sort of deodorant or cologne or anything like that. I don't know, my body odor just never gets like too bad unless I don't shower for several days. Yeah, Hawaii would be really amazing, and I don't know, I have a feeling it would draw in viewers, and at the very least it'd be a really cool place for people to watch. Hello, Dan. Welcome. Also, sorry if I'm a little nasally. I still have like some, I don't know, like leftover symptoms of the sickness that I had a couple weeks ago. Trying to think of what I can talk about. I was gonna say one of the books I'm reading recently is this Kung Fu book, which is more just like about the techniques and details of a certain form and the style of Kung Fu I'm learning. I'm not currently repping the chives. This is just a normal blue t-shirt. Although I do have, I need to give this back to him, but hold on. I do have Thomas's shirt here. And he gave it to me so I could take some footage of it for like the little t-shirt plug at the end of the episode. But I forgot to give it back, so. But yeah. So Thomas, if you're watching, I have your t-shirt. Chris said, would definitely boost the channel. Do you think you'll find any good snow anywhere this winter for an episode? That's a good question. I have a feeling it's going to be a pretty cold winter because at least it started snowing already in early November and like late October. So I think we'll have a decent time finding some snow to go camping in. But it's always like a question of timing because a place that's snowing one weekend might not snow the next, and you know, we might only be free certain weekends. So that's always, I remember like a long time ago, we got a comment saying like, oh, these guys never go camping in the snow. And it's like, well, it's not that we avoid it. It's just that it's really hard to align all our schedules on a weekend that happens to also be snowing in the location that we're looking at. But yeah, hopefully we can get a nice winter episode. I don't think we're gonna, like, I have a feeling we're not gonna do like a Christmas or New Year's episode like we've done the past couple years. But yeah, just any sort of snowy episode would be great. Dan Vulcan says, oh, I rip the chives every now and then, got my swag in last week. Nice, nice. It's been really cool actually seeing like people's pictures come in where they're wearing our t-shirts, because it's like, it's just so many different people that I don't know, it's like I never would have imagined like having a connection with all these different people. And now I see like so many people wearing the t-shirts. It's really cool. It feels surreal when you see the sport. Yeah, exactly. And especially because it's like I'm just a normal dude who helps make like videos and stuff. So it's cool to see this sort of like community support and community interaction. Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely see how that would be relatable. It's real, like, actually, this is going off on a tangent, but like, it's funny how, I don't know, just you can meet people that have connections to people that you never expected you would ever know personally. And like, the Kung Fu person I learned from, his instructor teaches in New York. And that person like grew up watching all these Kung Fu movies. And now that he's a big time Kung Fu instructor in New York, he like actually knows all the actors in all those old movies and stuff. Like personally knows them. Chris Robinson says, think I'm getting a t-shirt bought for Christmas. Awesome. Do you know which one you're going to get, Chris? And speaking of t-shirts, we were just, me and Thomas were just talking about how we need to release like another, we still need to create a design for Robby. And I know Brian's had a design in mind. I might work on that this week, actually. But we've also talked about doing, so having like the main t-shirts where it's like the 4 designs that represent each of us, and then the 5th design, which is the general Adventure Archives design. But we've also talked about doing like limited releases where we cycle in unique designs of t-shirts, something like that. Because we also have this like this old t-shirt design that's kind of like a retro look. And the reason we made that design was because I think it was because Robby saw some sort of a t-shirt. I forget if it was a national park t-shirt or something else, but he said it looked really cool. And so I tried making something similar, but I'll send that picture over right now, actually, if I can find it. Let's see. Can I post images in the chat? Probably not. Okay, I'll just post a link to this design. Make sure that link actually works. Yeah, so this is a like a retro 70s looking design that we had in mind, kind of like retro futuristic, Star Trek-y, I don't know. I feel like some people see it and they really like it, but I don't know if it's everyone's cup of tea or not. Chris Robinson says, nope, not sure which one, but all your designs are awesome, so I will be happy. Awesome. So someone else is getting the shirt for you, and then it's kind of a surprise as to which design they ended up choosing. Corey Weatherby says, are you guys pretty committed to making one trip per month all year round? We try to do that, but I think maybe like 10 trips a year is a solid number that we might shoot for. I know me, Bryan, and Thomas were talking about doing something this month, like in November. Somewhere small, but still like that would be cool to film. But we are still trying to figure out that, especially with the holidays, like things become busier because people have places to be. I know I personally would like to revisit Morgan Monroe, which is where we went in our second episode. I've talked to Robby about it, and I don't think he's as excited about it because, like, I mean, admittedly, it's just like a small little forest, but I think the fact that you can hike off trail and that I just remember like hiking off trail being one of the coolest memories, like from filming Adventure Archives. And I would love to recapture that sort of feeling in 4K and also like be able to do some more interesting bushcrafty stuff while we're off the trail. Like maybe even building a shelter out of dead wood or something along those lines. Oh, okay. You found out accidentally. Yeah, that sort of stuff always happens with the holidays. Dolly Sods with Thomas, yes. That is definitely something we want to do. And I think we might shoot for springtime because like it'd just be cool to do it in different seasons because the first time we ever did it was sort of late summer. The second time was winter. So we missed fall already, but springtime would be really cool to check out. Yeah, and actually, when we go back to Dolly Sods, I already know that there's one section of the trail that I really want us to go on. Because I've actually been there a third time. Let me pull up the trail map. But so I'll post the link to the trail map if anyone wants to see it. But so trail, I think it's 524. Yeah, trail 524 is the Rocky Ridge Trail. And so in both episodes, there's that part of the trail where we come out of a forest and we kind of look across this valley and we're like, oh, those distant hills look like something out of Scotland, like the Scottish Highlands. And so that's trail 523. But if you actually keep hiking, you can go to the trail that has all those rocks and hills that we were looking at a distance. And so I've been on that trail and it's super cool because like there's these big rocks all over that you can just climb up on. And I think the other guys would really enjoy that. So yeah, I think even starting from a different trailhead would be interesting. Yeah, maybe doing a different trailhead, but then like having some part of it that overlaps so we can like revisit a familiar campsite, but that would be really cool. I'm trying to remember where our second campsite was. It must have been on Trail 526, but I don't know where exactly. It must have been around Trail 509 and 521. Corey Weatherby says, I also really enjoyed the Minister Creek episode, Little Utopia Campsites Everywhere. Yeah, it's funny because like there are episodes where bad things happen where it like rains on us and there's like all this drama, and that can be really fun to watch. But it's also really fun to watch just people having a good time. And like, I feel like if you talk to like a movie producer or something, they would think like, oh, we need drama and excitement and like conflict. But I really, more and more, I just feel like the media that I enjoy watching is stuff where people are just enjoying themselves and having a good time. And I think that's like really what comes through with the Minister Creek episode, just like that sense of peace and relaxation and like paradise. And there's like, I feel like a lot of Japanese TV shows kind of capture that. There's a show on Netflix called Samurai Gourmet, and it's just about this like retiree who, now that he has all this free time, he goes around eating at different restaurants and like just talks about how much he enjoys the food and stuff. And that's like, it's just got such a bright and happy sort of tone. And I just love watching stuff like that. Like, I really don't think you need to have conflict or drama for something to be enjoyable to watch. Chris says, you went to a couple amazing places in the early episodes. North Manitou Island is still one of my favorites. Yeah, that is another place I would love to revisit. Like, we've kind of talked about just revisiting all the original places we've gone before, like the very original places. And I actually think, like, I don't know, I think that'd be really enjoyable to watch. Like, I think there's some concern that it might be repetitive or boring, but no, I think it'd be really cool. Because you could see how much we've grown and like how the environment has changed, and it'd also be in 4K, and I don't know, just our reactions to the environment. Also, like with Manitou Island in particular, there's so much of that we never explored. And it's funny because we actually went there with a plan that we would not explore a lot, because when we were on the mainland, we got hit by a ton of mosquitoes. But the island itself ended up being great. And now we could probably go back to the island and just show like so much more of it. Corey Weatherby says, I definitely enjoy just true companionship and fulfillment personally in each of you guys. Yeah, like that, I feel like that's just more and more what I want to see from the stuff that I watch. Which kind of actually, those two topics overlap, because I sometimes think about like, how bored would viewers get if we went back to the same place like multiple times? And I don't know, I feel like it could go either way depending on who you talk to. But like personally, I actually kind of enjoy when shows like revisit things like that. I mean, like Bob Ross had hundreds of episodes of him painting landscapes. And granted, none of them were ever exactly the same, but like they're all always kind of similar, like mountains and trees and stuff. But you never really get sick of it as long as it's actually a new episode. And so I feel like if we went back to the same place, but we were having like different interactions and maybe seeing different trails, but not necessarily, but like eating different foods, like I still think that would be interesting to watch. Anyway, Dan Vulcan says, oh, glad you mentioned trail maps. I noticed in earlier episodes that you would post trail info location in the description. Yeah, I need to do that. That's sort of something we've forgotten to do, but I've been meaning to go back, like just sit down and go back and update all of those. I also used to have like all the scene selections. So like in some of the older episodes in the description, there'd be like timestamps with different scenes. Yeah, I should do that. I might actually do that sometime this week or something. Hello, Randy. Welcome. Corey Weatherby says, as long as you guys are enjoying yourselves, I believe your viewers will be just as enthused. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's like what I've noticed is that, I mean, I kind of am repeating myself at this point, but a lot of the media I consume is also, like, I also enjoy it just because I enjoy hearing the people interact. Like, if you think about it, like a lot of people who watch sitcoms, like that's really what they're doing, is they're putting on a sitcom because it's like familiar and kind of an enjoyable thing to have on in the background. Like I watch Seinfeld and Star Trek a lot. Not that Star Trek is a sitcom, but like, and sometimes I'm like really interested in seeing the episode, but sometimes it's just nice to like have those familiar characters interacting. And I also listen to this Kung Fu podcast, and Yeah, I listen to this kung fu podcast where there's basically these two hosts who like talk about whatever. I mean, it's always kung fu related, but I've noticed they repeat a lot of the same stuff they've said before. But for some reason, it's just like always entertaining to listen to them because they're just like two dudes having a conversation. And it's like when you become familiar with people, I mean, it's just like hanging out with friends. Like, how often do you hang out with friends and you have something completely new to talk about, right? Versus most of the time, you know, you're kind of talking about the same stuff, but it's still like an enjoyable interaction, you know? I mean, me and Robby, like, we have exhausted any topic of conversation, but it's still fun to like hang out. Anyway, that's just a little tangent. Yeah, Robby is currently in Japan. I don't know exactly when he gets back, but I think it is pretty soon. I know for sure he gets back before. He probably gets back like this week if he's not back already. Because next week is Thanksgiving, and his family always celebrates that. And me and Bryan actually go celebrate that with them too. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm actually, for some reason, I'm really excited about that this year. I think maybe, like, I think sometimes when I get excited about going somewhere, part of it is also being excited about seeing, like, how I respond to being somewhere new. And now that I've learned new skills and stuff, like, it's always interesting to see how those can apply in any situation. So, for example, like, I mean, like, if I'm going camping and I've learned a new survival skill or something, it's fun to go there and test out that skill. But even like less concrete and practical than that, like now that I've been learning kung fu and like been thinking more about how my body works and what movements I'm able to do, like it's just fun to go to a new place and seeing what you're able to do. And even if you're not like actually fighting or training with people, it's still kind of fun to like show what you've learned, or I don't know, anything like that. Yuckin. Oh, hey, Yuckin. Welcome. Also, visiting the same place at different seasons is always entertaining. Yeah, that is very true. That is very true. So Yuckin is in the stream. If no one knows, he is the one who. Also, sorry if I'm still saying your name wrong. I know Robby got on us about that, but he is the one who was our guide during our Germany trip, and he was just like super helpful, helping us find a trail and helping us figure out how we could actually backpack in Germany. And he even drove us to our trailhead before he had to go to work. So that was awesome. Also, Mary Fisher is here. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, but I feel like one thing I've realized recently is like sometimes you have to, on some level, enjoy being yourself so that in any situation you can find something enjoyable. Like, I don't know, because you can be in situations where you're with people that you're not super close with. But if you've like cultivated yourself to be someone that you enjoy being, then any situation can be sort of enjoyable in some sort of sense. And I've thought about this too, like, I'm kind of just rambling now, but like people's egos are kind of this double-edged sword, like a yin and yang kind of thing, where having an ego can really drive you to do things to improve yourself. But where it becomes a problem is if you're too arrogant to people who, are not where you are in life. Like if you're looking down on people or talking down to people, I think that's a problem just in general. But two, it can be a problem when your ego prevents you from seeing like what areas you can improve in. So it's like this balancing act where you use it as something to motivate yourself or drive yourself, but you also need to make sure you stay humble and are aware of where you can improve. And it's funny because having been in kung fu classes, this doesn't happen a lot, but I've noticed there are moments where like people, like the instructor will say, okay, this is the drill we're going to do. And then I'll start doing the drill with somebody and they'll like explain very confidently that like, oh no, this is wrong. We have to do it this way. And I know for a fact that they are wrong. But they're just like so confident that they're right. And usually what I do is I just like call the instructor over and ask them, oh, is this what we're supposed to do? And then that kind of fixes the situation. But it's like you have to have enough drive to push yourself. But then when you become blinded about like the possibility that you might be wrong, that's also a problem, because then you're not able to learn anything new. It's like Bruce Lee used to say, you have to empty your cup to taste the tea or something along those lines. But anyway, that was just weird, random rambling. This is why all the narration in Venture Archives is like really corny and over the top. Hello, Esther. Welcome. Yes, good to see you too. I'm doing quite well. And thank you for joining the stream. I'll be right back. I gotta switch the laundry. Okay, I am back. Thank you, Esther. I hope you're having a good day too. I hope everyone's weekend went well. Also, I'm curious because like a couple weekends ago, it was Veterans Day. What did everyone do for that? Or did you just enjoy the weekend sometime? Because I feel like Memorial Day is more the one where people grill out just because of the weather. But also, does anyone have any fun and exciting holiday plans? Okay. Anyway, what else can I rant about on this live stream? I guess one other thing I've been thinking about is like New Year's resolutions and how there's like certain aspects of my resolutions that I made this year that I went through with, but then there's other areas where I didn't. It's always like this constant battle to like be more on top of things. But it's interesting how New Year's resolutions can be something where like it's almost easier to dedicate yourself to doing something because it is the new year versus just trying to do it in the middle of the year. I think maybe it's just that passage of time that kind of makes you like, oh, wait, I should do something different. Corey says, I'll be traveling to Tennessee to visit old high school friends and my family as well. Of course, I'll be buried in business because of the holidays and people buying my products. That makes sense. Yeah. It's funny how like certain fields of work can just get so busy this time of year. Someone I know does like the logistics for Walmart, and apparently they prepare for, I think, Black Friday and Christmas like months in ahead, just because they have to like figure out where everything is going to be shipped and stuff like that. Corey says, looking forward to next spring as well. Hoping to go to Red River Gorge. Yeah, that'd be cool. Someone was just messaging us about going to Red River Gorge and showing us some more places. But yeah, that's another place I would love to go back to. I mean, I guess we've been back there technically. I just kind of forget that I've been back there for that one recent episode because that was more a Thomas and Robby episode. But there's just like so many cool little landmarks there that I still want to see, like Cloud Splitter and stuff like that. One thing that I'm probably not going to do this year, but that I love doing is getting like a cabin with a hot tub in the winter. And I don't know, just hot tubs are like the best thing ever. They're also incredibly wasteful, but Dan Vulcan says, def easier to make New Year's resolutions over any other time of the year. The last few years, I've been trying to make improvements through the year over waiting for each new year. Don't ask me how well it's going, though. Yeah, that's how it goes. It's funny because, like, I feel like, yes, mint juleps. Definitely got to have some mint juleps. It's funny because I feel like the improvements that I make, like, I think one way to make sure you're still on top of those improvements is to turn them into a routine. Because with like Kung Fu, because that is something where there are classes every single week, it becomes a routine, and so it's easier to stick to, and it's not something where you can just easily like give it up. Another one of my like resolutions last year, well, coming into this year, was to take more like survival classes. And I did take one class, but because it's just like, because that's something that you really have to commit yourself to and like set aside time for, it's a lot harder for that to be something that you regularly keep up with. And I've been thinking like, I want to be more persistent with learning new plants and new mushrooms. And I really think the only way that can happen, and there's also an issue there where like the passage of time really affects that, because with the changing seasons, you're already missing opportunities on like learning new things as the seasons change. But I think like if I were to devote a certain amount of time on the weekend to hiking and like studying plants and mushrooms, that would actually make that resolution something more practical. I remember listening to this podcast and they were talking about how goals have to be like attainable, practicable, like quantifiable or something along those lines. I forget what exactly it was, but like there's certain things to goals where you need them to be more concrete and more quantifiable, and also within the bounds of reality, so that you can actually go through with them and achieve them. It's just something to think about. Chris Robinson says a second road trip one day would be awesome. Yeah, you know, I'm glad to hear you say that, because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like there's probably a mixed reception on the road trips, because on the one hand, people said they liked them, but on the other hand, I feel like they ended up getting less views than some of our other episodes. And maybe that's just like an issue with the YouTube algorithm, but I personally like watching the road trip episodes just because it's really interesting to see this one continuous journey and seeing all the different parts of that journey tie together. Actually, that's like, I've mentioned this before, but that's my favorite part about any of our episodes. And that's, I think, why we prefer doing backpacking trips to just like day trips where we're bouncing around in a car. But it's just fun to see how this one continuous journey links all these different sort of environments and scenic places and landmarks together. So, for example, in the Shawnee National Forest or State Forest episode, where me and Robby went backpacking, we get to that part where like the trail just comes to a road, and now we're hiking like next to power lines and chain link fences, and that area on its own would be kind of like mundane looking if you just drove there. But for some reason, it was just so cool and fascinating because it was part of this changing scenery on a long continuous journey of hiking. That's what's appealing to me about the Appalachian Trail too, and any sort of long distance trail. But it's the same with road trips, because even though we're in a car going from spot to spot, you can still like mark the exact time where you started that journey, and it was continuous all the way to the end. And so like the end of the road trip where we're in Evansville with Robby's family and like hanging out with people we're familiar with. That's the same journey as when we were in Los Angeles, leaving Thomas's apartment and going out into the desert. And it's like so interesting because those feel like worlds apart, and they are worlds apart. But just this one journey connects them. It's hard to describe, but I don't know. It's like it's just cool having that all be part of the same thing. Randy says, yeah, you have to have a target in mind. Otherwise, it's hard to move towards it once you know you've hit it. Or know once you've hit it. Yeah, definitely. Yakin says, routine definitely helps, and being in a group with other people. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Last year, I finally got my ham radio license only when I got into a weekly class where I got interaction with other people. Yeah, that is a really good point, actually. Because with the Kung Fu lessons, like part of the appeal of that is being with other people who have a similar interest and interacting with them. And so I'm always excited to learn more about Kung Fu, but it's also nice to talk with other people. One, because it's just fun to get to know them, but two, also like you're with people who can teach you and you can bounce ideas off each other and stuff like that. And they can also like sort of hold you accountable, for lack of a better term, if you're like tempted to slack off. But yeah, routine is definitely key. Esther says, I made a list of daily things to do on a spreadsheet. It helps as a reminder, stuff like meditate, yoga, learn Japanese, walk, etc. Yeah, you know, people always talk about to-do lists, and like I've always heard this, and I don't know how effective it is, but like some people will just put every tiny little task on their to-do list so that when they accomplish them, it feels like they've accomplished something. And I actually think there's something to that, because like I feel like a lot of life is inertia, where once you get the ball rolling, it's a lot easier to keep it rolling. Like I have a planner with different stuff that I'm doing, and it definitely helps when you're checking stuff off to be like, okay, I got this done, I can get this other thing done. But yeah, it's funny because I've just noticed in general, like it's so much easier to be more productive after I've done something like workout or really accomplish any task, but working out especially, because you get that boost of endorphins. And also like the physicality of it makes you feel a lot more like mobile the rest of the day. But yeah, it's funny how stuff like that works. Road trip up into Canada would be incredible. Yeah, that would be really cool. That would be really cool. It's funny because like I've been to Canada several times, but I feel like I have only like scratched the surface. Because like most of the time it's been up to Ontario, and even then mostly to Toronto. So yeah, Canada would be really cool. Vancouver would be an amazing city to visit too. I think I've been there as a kid, but I don't think I like really remember a whole lot about it. But I do know that it's a super cool city. I mean, so many West Coast cities are, but so actually, you know, maybe now I'll take this time to talk a bit. And I might cut this live stream a little bit shorter than an hour at least, just because I have to do some stuff. But I might take this time to talk about some of our plans for Campfire Chronicles. Squamish. Why do I know what that word is? A town north of Vancouver in British Columbia, Canada. It's at the northern tip of the island-dotted Howe Sound, surrounded by mountains. Okay, that looks amazing. Wow, that looks so cool. Have you been there, Yakin? Chris, yeah, so I actually haven't played video games a lot recently, just because like they can be such a time drain, but recently was playing Jedi Fallen Order, which is a game that Thomas has been really into too. That is like a really, really good game so far. If you've ever played like Zelda or Metroid or whatever, it's very similar to those in certain ways, but it's a Star Wars game where you're a Jedi and stuff. But yeah, it's like a lot of cool exploration, a lot of different environments, interesting story, a lot of just exploration and adventure, which is what I love out of any video game. But yeah, I haven't been putting too much time into that recently. It's just like whenever I play video games, there's always a point where it's like, okay, I want to stop, but I'm still playing it, and then that can leave you feeling really crappy afterwards. Um, I guess it's the same with anything in life. So you just have to know when to stop. But yeah, so Thomas and I were talking about Campfire Chronicles because we're hoping to bring that back as a monthly podcast at least. And we were thinking of like having, well, one, like we would probably have a regular topic for each episode. And it wouldn't necessarily just be me and Thomas, but we were just talking about it recently. But we were also thinking like every episode we could have a section at the end where we answer a few questions from viewers. But we could also have a section at the beginning where we just kind of like talk about anything going on in our personal life and things that we're interested more generally. Just because like on the one hand, we are obviously an outdoors adventure channel. But I think it's also just entertaining for people to listen to us have conversations in general. And I think talking about stuff that we are in that very moment, like interested in or want to talk about, can really cultivate like good conversation. And so like on the one hand, I want it to be a podcast where there are like, where it is organized and we have segments, but on the other hand, I also want to allow for more flowing conversation. And, you know, if someone wants to go on a tangent, I want that to happen. Because at least personally, the podcasts I enjoy the most are ones where people are conversing and the conversation just goes anywhere. There are podcasts where it's a lot more organized. And I feel like this is especially the case where it's just one person talking. But yeah, there are podcasts where like they're much more rigid and organized. But I don't know. I don't like those ones as much necessarily. They're almost like too overproduced in a weird way. As long as you have good audio quality and you're just having a natural conversation, I think that's like the best formula for a podcast. But that's just me personally. Yuckin says, no, I have not been to, or in Squamish, there are trail races there as I'm interested in trail running. Oh, that's interesting. You know, that is, we should have some people on as podcast guests. Just because like trail running is very much an outdoor activity, but it's also one that I know nothing about. I mean, I can like, I obviously know that you're running on trail, but it'd be really interesting, like, not even just about the techniques of trail running, but what interests me the most when I talk to people with like different outdoors hobbies is what it is about that hobby that really, really speaks to them. Yuckin says, I just saw some YouTube videos about this trail races in Squamish. Oh, and Orcas Island in Washington State. Oh, cool. That would be an amazing place to run on any trail. But I remember I was talking to some people who enjoy climbing, and I asked them like, what is it that really appeals to you about climbing? Because I've talked to climbers and they're like, oh, I hate backpacking. And to them, it's like, why would I want to walk with a big, heavy backpack? And yes, for some hikers, it's all about the miles and stuff. But for me, it's like backpacking is not about hiking with a backpack and trying to hike as long as you can. Like for me, the real joy of backpacking is from just being out in the wilderness, completely separated from society, and like really just like hiking your way into wilderness, setting up camp there, and just being surrounded by it all. And it's like less about the hiking and backpacking and more about just living, but in the wilderness. It just so happens that backpacking is like one of the best ways, as far as I'm concerned, of doing that, because you're literally just walking right into the wilderness. And so, thank you, Dan. And so I talked to this climber, and because to me, I was like, you know, I can see the appeal of climbing where like it's a fun physical activity and you're like accomplishing something once you're at the top and like you see this big obstacle and you want to get to it. And so he was telling me like, well, actually, one of the biggest appealing parts of climbing is seeing something and knowing that you can get there and exploring somewhere that like you otherwise wouldn't be able to get to. And that kind of clicked with me and like helped me understand the appeal of it, because it's like you get to a landscape and you're like, there is like a whole different environment up on top of this rock, and climbing is the only way I can get to that and discover that. And so that really helps me understand that hobby. But yeah, then there's all these other hobbies like trail running and mountain biking, like Chris Robinson just said. And it's just like, I'm just so interested to hear like what it is about those hobbies that really click with people. Yakin Kun said, I'm not a hiker / camper. I'm a runner, but I run only shorter distances of 10 to 15 miles, which to me sounds like a really long distance. See, like if you were to ask me what I think is appealing about trail running, like I could probably guess and be like, well, one, I personally sort of enjoy running. Granted, I only do like 2 miles a day, but like I enjoy the way it makes me feel. So that definitely could be a part of it. And then I imagine like being able to run long distances on a trail and just seeing all the different environments as you're going along is part of it. But I feel like there's just like a depth to it that I am not able to understand unless I actually really get into trail running. Same with like any other outdoor hobby. But like with mountain biking, I imagine part of that is like the exhilaration of going really fast and like navigating around the obstacles on the trail. But that's just on a surface level what I can kind of glean from that. Yakin says the race in Squamish is 50 kilometers one day and 50 miles the next day. Wow, that's nuts. Dan Vulcan says, gotta go. Have a great evening. And Andrew and everyone. Thank you, Dan, for joining us. Have a good evening. And actually, I will probably wrap things up in about 3 or so minutes. But yeah, sorry, it has to be a little bit shorter than usual. But I really appreciate everyone being here. What are some other outdoor hobbies, though? Like rock climbing is the big one that comes to mind. I guess there's always like snowboarding and skiing and stuff like that. And of course, there's always like all these very extreme outdoor hobbies. It's so funny how many different hobbies there are that are outdoorsy, and they like range. Like there's hunting and there's fishing, there's RV camping, and then there's like snowboarding and wingsuit flying, and they're all technically outdoorsy hobbies, but man, they just feel like worlds apart. Chris says, that's why I love mountain biking. You can travel long distances and see loads of scenery, but it can still be done at a leisurely pace. Yeah, that I could really get into, actually. I actually went mountain biking once with Thomas. It was just at some like local place, I think. And it was like a beginner trail, but it's still going around those corners still felt really scary. But I've always thought it would actually be really cool to like do trail biking or something like that. Like if you could just bike along a flat stretch of dirt, because I actually really like biking on like dirt terrain. But I just don't like biking uphill as much. But I could really see the appeal of that. And actually for a while, earlier in the Life of Adventure Archives, we were kind of thinking like of doing an episode at Hocking Hills where we bike from campsite to campsite, because you can't actually backpack at Hocking Hills, but the landscapes there are amazing. And we were thinking, well, we could make it a continuous journey by having everything on our bikes and just biking from one campsite to another. And I don't know, maybe we'll still do that someday, but it was just kind of the inception of an idea. Anyway, with that, unless there are any last minute questions, I will probably call it for this live stream. Yakin says, check Ryan Van Duzer's recent videos riding 7 days Durango, Colorado to Moab, Utah. Ooh, interesting. Ryan Van Duzer's. Okay, I will check that out in a bit. And then Chris Robinson says, absolutely love to see the World Series on YouTube with Iohan. It's incredible. He has spent 5 years now biking from Alaska to Argentina. Holy cow. That's nuts. So is he in Argentina now and he's trying to get to like the southern tip of South America, or did he already complete that? God, 5 years from Alaska to Argentina. That is just wild. I can't even like I'm trying to think if 5 years sounds like a lot of time or a little time for traveling that distance by bike, but my brain can't even like fathom what that would be like. I can't even conceptualize how much distance you could cover on that map, like by bike. That's really cool. You know, I speaking of long distance stuff, the trail Robby and Bryan recently did was technically part of the North Country Trail, which is like a 4,000-mile trail, and apparently only 3 people have through hiked that. And that's just like, and actually it goes through Ohio, and it goes through like Hocking Hills. And I love the idea of a single trail connecting all these different places. But anyway, Chris Robinson says he's currently still in Argentina, but I think he's going to actually go around the whole world. Holy cow. The videos are amazing, though. Not sure if anyone on here has seen his videos. Yeah, 4,000 miles. It's nuts. It goes from like North Dakota, across the Upper Peninsula and stuff, down to Ohio, and then up all the way through to New York. I don't know. It's just like really cool to think about that. But yeah, only 3 people have through hiked that. Anyway, that's going to be it for our live stream. But thank you, everybody, for joining us. Sorry this was a bit of a shorter one, but we will see you on our weekly update, hopefully on Thursday. And hopefully by then we can have like a Campfire Chronicles recorded. But before we record that, we will probably post on Facebook or something asking people to send us questions that we can address on the episode. But anyway, thank you, everyone. Bye, Esther. Bye, Marie. Bye, Randy. Yeah, it was cool hanging with you, too. It was actually really cool at being able to hang out with people who I don't usually see on the later streams just because it's a different time. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Yakin, it was great to talk to you again. Yeah. Have a good night, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your week. See ya.